And welcome to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers back with you. Each week we're right here to meet interesting people and discuss topical issues, and we have an interesting person on tap today.
We do, but before we talk about the Honorable Gary Lumpkin, I want to congratulate you, Mr. Mayor, on getting the U.S. Mayor's Conference to come to Oklahoma City in 2010.
Well,
great.
Nice of you to point out. Maybe we'll have some guests on The Verdict from that conference in 2010. We move the schedules around.
I'm counting on it. We'll still be here. We'll still be looking for guests. Yes, today the Honorable Gary Lumpkin, the presiding judge of the Court of Criminal Appeals, will be joining us. Our court system in Oklahoma is unique and interesting, and he can tell us a lot about it.
And we'll get caught up. You're watching The Verdict with Mick Cornett and Kent Myers, and we'll be right back.
In driving rain, blistering heat, and bitter cold, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, Chesapeake drills non-stop for natural gas on American soil. Chesapeake drills more new gas wells than anyone else, and from those wells collects the most drilling information and acquires more 3D seismic images, leveraging every efficiency to improve the odds of finding more natural gas every day with every well we drill. The better job we do of discovering bigger reserves of clean-burning American natural gas, the greater the prosperity of our nearby communities, our state, and our nation. And as long as there are more gas reserves to be found here in the U.S., we will never rest. Chesapeake. Natural gas wins the day.
Channel, following your favorite teams all season long.
Hi, this is James Garner.
Hi, this is Reba McEntire.
Hi, this is Johnny Bench.
Hi, I'm Barry Switzer.
Hey, everybody, this is Vince Gill.
Welcome to my home state of Oklahoma,
where we'll be celebrating 100 years of statehood
in 2007.
Our strength is our people, and the 2,100 Oklahomans from the Cox Communications family are proud to be part of Oklahoma's story. Cox and Oklahoma, true partners.
Happy birthday, Oklahoma.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're really pleased to have the Honorable Gary Lumpkin join us for his first visit on The Verdict. Judge Lumpkin did his undergraduate work at Southwestern State University at Weatherford, did his law work at the University of Oklahoma, served in the Marine Corps in Vietnam for a number of years, and retired from the Marine Corps with the rank of colonel. He was on the district court bench in southern Oklahoma for 7 years. He has been on the Court of Criminal Appeals now for 18 years, and he is the presiding judge of the Court of Criminal Appeals. Judge Lumpkin, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
At the top, at least, Oklahoma's court structure is fairly unique. Can you describe the split structure that takes place with the state Supreme Court and the Court of Criminal Appeals?
Right, Mike. It came about at the Constitutional Convention, and the only thing that we can figure out from looking at history is we had a bunch of Texas lawyers, including Alfalfa Wild Bill Murray, president of the convention, who created our judicial article. And Texas had had this system for many years prior to that time. So I think that probably what happened is they did what they were comfortable with, and that was the Texas system, which means that our Supreme Court only hears civil appeals, and the Court of Criminal Appeals is the court of last resort for all criminal appeals.
Is it repetitive? Is it a better system and not so good system? What's your take on the system that we have?
Well, as time has gone by, I think all lawyers will tell you that they have tended to need to specialize because of the complexity of the law. What this does is allow both civil and criminal cases to track simultaneously and not have one put back to give priority to the other. So on the criminal side, we have 5 judges. We have no intermediate appellate court. On the civil side, they have 9 justices. They have an intermediate court with 12 judges on that. And what happens is, with the criminal side, is that cases come directly from the district court or the 2 courts not of record, the municipal courts of record, Tulsa and Oklahoma City, and we decide those appeals in a pretty expedited way. And then once we make a decision, the place that they go is the United States Supreme Court.
Is there any interaction between the Supreme Court and the Court of Criminal Appeals? I don't mean social interaction, I mean from a legislative or from a work standpoint.
Well, from the Constitution, it gives the Supreme Court the right to decide if there's a question as to where a case goes, the jurisdiction of a case, then the Supreme Court decides that issue of who has jurisdiction over the case.
I see.
And so there is some interaction that way. The other thing is that periodically you'll have justices of the Supreme Court who recuse or are unable to sit on a case, and they'll invite one or more of us over to sit with them on those cases. So there is some interaction that takes place.
Let me harken back to what you said about the complexity. I really believe that from the early 60s on, with some of the Warren Court decisions and Miranda warnings and the like, and Brady decisions about turning over exculpatory evidence, that the complexity of criminal cases has increased probably more than the complexity of civil cases has increased. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know, there's always so many nuances within the civil realm, but there's also a lot more latitude in the trial and the review of civil cases. You will never see a decision from the Oklahoma Supreme Court go to the U.S. Supreme Court unless it's some isolated federal constitutional issue. Every one of our cases that we decide, from the most trivial misdemeanor to capital cases, have the potential of going to the U.S. Supreme Court for review. So it puts a more onus on the way you go about the review and the writing of a case, knowing that you're going to have the possibility of having your work graded every time. But you're right, the rules as far as criminal procedure have changed remarkably since the 60s. And police officers are held to a higher standard. The district attorney is held to a higher standard. And as the court, we're supposed to enforce those rules, and trying to mesh both civil and criminal gets, I think, potential of cross-pollination that confuses rather than clarifies the law.
Let me ask you a little bit about your court. Its makeup, its membership, the experience level of the judges that are on the court now.
We're blessed with a very diversified body of judges that are sitting on our court.
How many are there?
There's 5. 2 of our judges, Judge Charles Johnson and Judge Charles Chappell, came from private civil practice law firms. Judge Arlene Johnson came from the federal prosecutor's office in the Western District. Judge Lewis and myself both have been on the district court bench and bring that experience to the court. So we have a good cross-section of perspectives based upon our history within the legal profession.
One thing, excuse me, Mick, one thing I like to bring up is when I started practicing law, it wasn't the Court of Criminal Appeals, it was the Criminal Court of Appeals, and thankfully that name got changed.
That's
They had
right.
it right to begin with. What's the workload like at the Court of Criminal Appeals?
We run our statistics on a fiscal year, so Saturday was the end of the fiscal year, and I don't have this latest year. But we will run between 1,400 and 1,800 regular cases a year for the 5 judges. And then with that, we have around 2,500 to 3,000 intermediate matters. And the thing about our court is that all 5 judges have to enter into every decision. So that gives us plenty of work to do on a daily basis to keep the cases flowing.
Out of the 1,400 to 1,800, how many are dismissed? How many are rendered with a decision? How does all that break down?
Each of them are rendered with a decision, either an order or a full opinion. We're required to do that because, and this is something different from the civil side, is each criminal appeal is an appeal of right. So when you have a right to file the appeal, you have a right to have a decision one way or the other.
I see.
So we have to enter an order or an opinion in every case that's filed.
How many are denied? Is there a ratio that's kept track of?
We affirm approximately 93% of all the convictions that are brought to us. Of those 7% that are, most of them are remanded. The ones that are dismissed are usually where there's double jeopardy issue. The state may have filed a possession with intent to distribute and possession regarding the same drug, and you can't have a conviction for both. So we would dismiss the possession as a part of adjudicating that appeal.
93% are upheld. Is that fairly standard across the country, or does Oklahoma swing one way or the other?
Good question. I don't remember seeing those statistics anywhere.
Okay.
Well, now, obviously, the defendant has a right to appeal. Let's say that something happens in the course of the trial that throws the case out at the trial level. Does the prosecution have a right to appeal that decision as well?
They have a right to preserve a question of law, and they can appeal to us on a reserved question of law. But regardless of how we may render an opinion on that reserved question of law, it will not change the verdict. So the state does not have a right to overturn
a jury
verdict of acquittal.
Okay.
The Honorable Gary Lumpkin, Court of Criminal Appeals, our guest today on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
Shining is taking responsibility. At Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma, we know managing your health care can be overwhelming, and it's our job to help you meet the challenge. By guiding, supporting, and showing the way, we encourage you to gain control. Because we believe the best tool we can give you is the confidence to take charge. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma, shining through.
Okiwani is an Indian name for a place where children play. When we obtained the camp, we found a lot of oil debris left in the woods. We saw a commercial about how the oil and natural gas industry cleans up old oil well sites. We called the OERB, and they agreed to remove tons of concrete and steel. It didn't cost us a thing. Thousands of children have left their footprints on this land. Thanks to the oil and gas industry, they will for a long time to come.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
There's a whole new world online, but it's not always safe for kids. Never give your name, phone, address, or password to anyone you met online, and always keep your personal information private. It's the safe way for kids, right, gang?
Right. Be safe online. Thanks to Lauren Nelson and Cox, we're working to keep Oklahoma kids safer online. For your free guide, log on now. And if you feel your child has been placed in danger by someone online, notify law enforcement today.
Are you the one looking for an exciting new career? If so, we are the one looking for you. We are Cox Communications, and we are searching for field service representatives. FSRs interact and perform services at our customers' home. Sound like the job for you? Then some of the things you need are a high school diploma and a good driving record. But for complete job description and qualification, go to jobs@cox.com.
We're discussing the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals. The Honorable Gary L. Lumpkin is our guest today on The Verdict. Ken?
Judge, occasionally you see reported juries giving defendants 500-year sentences, 1,000-year sentences. What does that really mean, and how does that work out?
Well, it makes the jury feel good. because they really mean it. They don't want that person back out on the streets. The thing about the system in Oklahoma is the Pardon and Parole Board has a lot of control over that particular sentence. And the Pardon and Parole policy is that anytime you have a sentence in excess of 45 years, even if it's 500 years, they're going to deem that to be a life sentence, and they're going to compute a life sentence at 45 years. And so if it's a offense that is parolable, then they would consider that conviction at 1/3 of 45. So they have a lot of control over the actual implementation and execution of that sentence.
Do you have oral argument in the Court of Criminal Appeals?
We always have oral arguments on death penalty cases, and we have those on Tuesdays. And then on Thursdays, we have a docket we call our accelerated docket. And there are certain cases that we want to expedite, and we want to make sure that they get up there in a timely fashion. Those cases involve youthful offenders, juveniles, and some state appeals. And so what we do is when those appeals are filed in our court, we issue a scheduling order, and we make them file their briefs, which are not full briefs. They're just filling out a form, telling us what the issues are, referencing the record, giving references to the law, and submitting that to us in a timely fashion with the record, and then we set it for oral argument. The parties have 15 minutes for each side. We go back and we reserve 30 minutes for deliberation. We go back and decide the case, and before they leave the courthouse, or the Capitol, I should say, they have a decision in that case. And that way we can kind of expedite those cases that need to be expedited.
Oklahoma, we've done a show or two about this, incarcerates more women than any other state. Do you, sitting in the position you have as presiding judge of the Court of Criminal Appeals, why is that? Why does Oklahoma put in jail more women than any other state per capita?
That's an interesting question, and I've thought about that from time to time. And I think the more interesting way to ask the question is, what is it in our society that makes women want to act in such a way that they will work themselves into the state penitentiary? And the reason I say that is it's not easy to get into the state penitentiary. Usually to have a true first-time offender, someone has committed a horrendous act, a child molestation, a homicide of some type. But the regular offenses, usually the individual will get a suspended or deferred sentence. They're placed on probation, and then they get sent to prison when they don't fulfill those terms and conditions of probation. So that's why I say they have to work at getting into the penitentiary. And I don't know what it is within our society that's caused women to start acting in that way, to work themselves into a prison situation.
Well, what is the most common criminal act that gets before the court? Is there a trend? Is there one thing that's half your load?
Well, right now we see more drug cases, and we see more child molestation sex cases. Those are the two blue light specials, if you want to call it, of volume right now.
Do you see anything that can be done at the grassroots level, at the police level, that might help eliminate or lower the number of those cases that wound up
or the drug court level?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think we all want to talk about bricks and mortar and trying to solve some of these problems because we're wanting a hands-on, fix-it type thing. I've always thought that the commission of crime and the volume of crime is really a reflection of the morality of society. From a standpoint of grassroots level, to me, the thing that needs to be done and that needs to be emphasized is, one, young people need to be informed and taught that there is right and wrong. They need to know that there are community standards. I think that this is an area where we've deprived a lot of our young people of the structure they need in their lives because communities no longer have those community standards that this is, this is right, you can do it, you better not do this. And we've deprived them of that kind of structure to know what's right and what's wrong. And I think if we could get back into society where we were more in the small community environment, like I was when I was growing up, I knew if I walked downtown and I did something on the way that was improper, somebody was going to call my mother and say, Sam, I saw Gary do this, and she was going to say thank you. We knew what was expected of us. We've deprived our young people of that standard today.
Do we need more specialty courts? Do we need more drug courts?
Anytime you have intensive supervision, you're going to increase the likelihood of a successful probation. Right now, instead of using pardon and parole officers and probation officers, what we're doing is we're using judges as probation officers. In these drug courts and specialty courts, you're turning the judge from a judge into the probation officer that's supervising these people. And to me, what we need to do is we need to increase the number of probation officers that we have, require them to do intensive supervision, because when someone knows they're going to be watched and they're going to be checked on, then they're going to conform to those rules that have been set down for them. And to me, you expand the program by having the probation officer doing it, and then let the judge be the hammer when they fail to comply with the rules.
What's on the horizon for your court 3-5 years down the road? Are we going to see an expansion or a contraction of your court from 5 to 7 or 5 to 3, or are we going to see different procedures used by your court?
I think that we're pretty much locked in at 5, and I'll be honest with you, from a standpoint of group dynamics, I think 5 is close to the maximum amount of people to work in a group to be able to work efficiently and to put out a quality product. You might be able to go to 7, but there hasn't been any talk regarding that. I think you're going to see within the legal profession more technology. We're even now trying to get a lot of stuff set up on a computer system to where it would automatically spew out orders when deadlines are not met. You'll probably see at some point in time electronic filing within the court system. The question on that electronic filing, it really is, who's going to pay the cost to make the copies? Are you going to make the lawyer pay the cost to make the copies, or are you going to send it up electronically and then have the court have to make the copies when they start to work on the process?
Judge, we got about a minute left. We talk a lot in the United States about freedom, land of the free. We're based on freedoms that aren't offered in other societies. Yet, a person in your position has to have the mental strain of determining when those freedoms will be denied for whatever reason. What sort of mental strain does that put on a person in your position, knowing that you're a person that has to decide whether this person deserves the right to have the freedoms that the rest of us enjoy?
Or may die.
Yeah.
Well, I think your heart breaks every time you see lost opportunity and lost potential in someone that has put their energies into something that is not lawful, when they could have put their energies into something that was lawful and they could have been a productive citizen. The thing about it is, I think the question is, do you accept ownership of their problems? And I developed a long time ago the philosophy that I'm not going to accept ownership of their problems and their condition. I'm going to have empathy for them. I'm going to worry about what could have been done with their lives if they had gone another way. But to me, the law and the facts dictate the result without getting into the personality of it. Even though you may empathize with their status in life and the impact it has on their family, to me the law and the facts will dictate the result, and you have to be willing to live with that result.
The Honorable Gary Lumpkin, our guest today on The Verdict. Thanks so much for coming by the show. I think we learned a lot.
Appreciate
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Kent and I'll have a final word after this.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of the verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Our pledge as a company is to provide quality of service for our paying customers. When you illegally hook up cable,
everyone pays.
Theft of cable can cause outages.
Sometimes poor reception.
We seek out illegal use.
And we prosecute offenders.
If you know someone not paying for service,
call us at 1-800-466-5590.
You could remain anonymous.
Cable theft. It's more serious than you think. It's a crime.
There's a whole new world online, but it's not always safe for kids. Never agree to meet anyone you only know online, because they might not be who they say they are. And if you must meet them, take a parent along. It's the safe way for kids. Right, gang?
Right. Be safe online.
Thanks to Lauren Nelson and Cox, we're working to keep Oklahoma kids safer online. For your free guide, log on now. And if you feel your child has been placed in danger by someone online, notify law enforcement today.
Welcome back to The Verdict, wrapping up this show with Judge Lumpkin, and I want to give the website for the judge and really all of the Criminal Court of Appeals. It's okcca.net, okcca.net.
Judge Lumpkin's been on the court for 18 years, does a grand job. They roll out a lot of cases very efficiently and dealing with a very difficult subject. He's widely respected in the legal circles as a very intelligent, thoughtful, and forceful judge.
And if you'd like to see a show on The Verdict coming up, go to our website, theverdict.tv, theverdict.tv. Tell us about a guest you'd like to see. We'll see you then.
The preceding program was produced by the Production Services Group at Cox Communications, exclusively for the Cox Channel.